Oh, hi everybody, it's Ezra Levant. It's April 17th, and you're watching Virus Battleground. That's how I normally introduce our weekly Battleground show, but we've been doing this daily since the virus came down for two reasons. First of all, there's so much to talk about, and second of all, a lot of folks are at home looking for something to do, to watch, to see, and to interact. As you know, these daily shows, they're not just me talking to you and my friends David Menzies and Sheila Gunn-Reid. It's you talking back. Look to the right of your video screen, that little box of comments going like a ticker. That's the super chat part. You can make any comment you like, and if you throw in a few bucks or whatever your currency is, your comment is made in a bright color, and I see it out of the corner of my eye because my laptop's open here, and it sticks to the top of the box. Everybody sees your comment, and even if I miss it, Justin in our control room sends me an email to my laptop, and I read them all. So that's the super chat part, and the reason we like that is because Google actually gives us, somewhat grudgingly, 70% of those funds. So thank you to everyone who chips in. Feel free to like and subscribe and hit that bell and share this live stream. There are so many things I want to talk to you about today. Typically on these Battleground live streams, Justin, our producer, puts together a list of things he knows I've been talking about or tweeting about over the past few days. And I sometimes choose something I want to go deep on myself. There are so many things today. It's probably the newsiest day of all. Let me just tell you some of the clips that Justin has got ready. And of course, I always give him projects on the go, like look up this or look up that. But just an incredible UK police video. Is that the one in the park? Yeah, that's just so infuriating. And I'm going to talk to you about fightthefines.com, because I think we're entering into a new phase here. I think that the peril of the virus itself has peaked, to use the phrase, the curve has been flattened. And it turns out it wasn't even much of a curve to begin with, at least not in Canada. I saw yesterday, I'd have to check to make sure I'm not misremembering, that in the province of Saskatchewan, and I grant you, it's only 1.1 million people or so, but still, I mean, a million people, that's a fair sample size. You know how many people are in hospital for the virus in Saskatchewan? 8. Not 800 or 8,000, but 8. And I think only one's in ICU. I'm going from memory, that those stats may be off by a couple. How can you have 1 million people on lockdown because 8 people are in the hospital and no one seems to be in grave peril? 8 people are in the hospital for any malady out of 1.1 million at any given time. Alberta's not much difference. There was one little cluster, but other than that, not a lot that's gone wrong. Same thing, there's different states in the United States as well that they've had a cluster here or a cluster there, but other than that, it actually has been no more deadly than the regular flu season. And that's not to take away from the few spots that there really seems to have been problems, like New York. But can you find the tweet that I tweeted yesterday? A study by Kaiser Health did some math on the economic benefits to a hospital or a state or a healthcare consortium that says, oh, hey, over here, hello, over here, we've got a virus case, we've got the coronavirus here. If you search from Ezra Levant, $300,000. That's the key word that'll pop up. And then click into that story if you would. If a hospital says, hey, Mr. President, hey, Mr. Governor, we have a coronavirus, a COVID-19 virus at our hospital, they get $300,000. Yeah, Nebraska getting 300 G's in federal money. That doesn't even go to provincial money for each coronavirus case, while New York gets 12 grand. Now, the emphasis of this story is to show the unfairness. Of course, New York got so much more than money. They got ventilators, they got that massive military hospital ship, they got the Army Corps of Engineers building an emergency makeshift hospital in the Javits Center. But I'm just talking about the pure cash. Scroll down a bit. Let's read a little bit of this story here. And what's the news source? This is MSN. What's the byline? Go up just a little bit here. Yeah, so this is Kaiser Health News. published, you can see, go up to the very top left here. Yeah, MSN News. So this is not some obscure site. This is, frankly, the media party. This is the mainstream media. Let's read a little bit here. Probably few hospital systems need the emergency federal grants announced this week to handle the coronavirus as badly as Florida's Jackson Health does. So they're whining that some hospitals didn't get as much money as others did, and that may be true. That may be true. This might be a valid complaint. But scroll down, and states such as Minnesota. Highlight that whole paragraph. States such as Minnesota, Nebraska, and Montana, which the pandemic has touched relatively lightly, are getting more than $300,000 per reported COVID-19 case in the $30 billion. Now this is American numbers. I'm sure the Canadian numbers are similar. On the other hand, New York, Florida is getting 132 grand. Thanks very much. I think my point is clear. That if you are a Canadian province, a US state, a hospital, a health authority, whatever the structure is in your local area, and you say, oh, yeah, boss, we got a problem over here. I don't think it costs $300,000 to treat one case of the virus. I just don't think it does. I mean, ventilators cost what, 20 grand each or something, and nursing care costs money, but it doesn't cost 300 grand. 300 grand is what, a triple bypass transplant kind of massive 12-hour surgery with the whole team and weeks of no. I mean, there are some medical procedures that cost 300 grand. Treating the virus is not. Do you see my point? It's big business. It's big business for the likes of the public health deep state. Now we hear the word deep state when we talk about the security and intelligence community, the deep state that objected to Donald Trump winning, and so they cooked up this fake dossier that had all these allegations about Russian involvement. It was all disproven by Mueller's inquiry, but that's where we hear the phrase deep state, the permanent, unelected, unaccountable political class that ought to be civil servants taking direction from the elected and accountable legislature and executive and I guess responding to the judiciary. But instead it's like a fourth branch of government that says, no. We know what's right and wrong, and we don't like Trump as president. We'll cook up some dodgy dossier. Well, the same thing on the public health side. Who are all these people who are suddenly held up as unimpeachable, uncontrovertible experts, high priests and mainly priestesses that you can't even question? They become celebrities. In the United States, Dr. Fauci is one of them. He's actually quite a winning personality. I find him quite engaging. Dr. Birx down there also, they're often with Trump. Their predictions have been off by a factor of 10. I'm not mad at them. I'm just saying they guessed wrong. I mean, my guess wouldn't have been any better. And I excuse them in that China lied throughout the whole time. So maybe China was covering things up. Maybe things are so bad. Maybe there were 20 million people dead in China. As you may know, the number of cell phone users in China dipped by 21 million over the last quarter. Now, did they suddenly stop finding TikTok amusing? Did they suddenly not like the internet? Did they fall on hard economic times? Really, you can't afford a cell phone? Or did 21 million people die? Can you grab a headline to that effect, China's cell phone users? I think the number is 21 million, I want a proof point for people. So if you're Dr. Fauci or Dr. Birx, or in Canada, Dr. Tam, or the various other doctors on the provincial level, you're guessing, and you're basing it on propaganda from China, and maybe you're worried, and you see bad news out of Italy and Spain. Yeah, look at this. So this is from Bloomberg, I can tell from the font. China's mobile carriers lose 21 million users as virus bites, by Shirley Zhao. China Mobile leads drop with 8 million. China Telecom, Unicom. China's wireless carriers are reporting drops in users as the coronavirus crisis cuts business activity. Is that what it is? Is that what it is? What's the date on this story? March 23rd. The rare industry-wide slump in subscribers shows the pandemic crisis that first emerged in China late last year is crimping growth. Okay, but we're not talking about growth. Can you scroll up a bit again? Look at that the headline is, they lose 21 million users. So I'm not talking about slowing growth. I'm talking about vanishing 21 users. So slowing growth is China's mobile carriers only sign up 1 million new people. Only sign up 500,000 new people. That's slowing growth. But when 21 million users stop, well, where did they go? Did 21 million people really stop using their phones and just say, I don't need it anymore? And if you already have a phone, and I'm guessing they have pretty cheap phones in China, Huawei and whatnot, and I'm guessing their plans are pretty cheap and there's really cheap options. You just give up your plan all day. So my point, a bit of a tangent there, is maybe things would be worse. But the public health deep state in Canada, the United States, and the UK, this is their time to shine. Boy, are they loving it. They're on TV every day. They're superstars. They have submissive media scrutiny. I mean, even Trump's two public health face very little scrutiny at those press conferences. All the hatred and invective is directed at Trump, very rarely at these public health experts. I heard the other day someone say the phrase, I've never seen a conservative public health official. It's true. By nature, it's not a conservative profession. There are no conservatives in public health because there's plenty of conservative doctors. And that's the difference between a doctor and a public health official. I know what a doctor does. A doctor looks at your body and your symptoms and your maladies and tries to figure out what's going wrong at diagnosis, and then tries to give you advice, a prescription, a remedy. I think, in fact, a doctor is by definition a conservative profession. Now, you can have radical, experimental, progressive therapies, but generally, medicine is tried and true. What works, what doesn't. And if you're too radical, a doctor, you get into trouble. You cause undesirable side effects. You get into quackery. You know, I've heard it said, it might even be one of Robert Conquest's laws, I can't remember, that everyone is a conservative about the thing they know best. Isn't that true? Because there's a certain way, there's certain customs. So a doctor, I think, is by definition a conservative. But a public health officer, who may also be a doctor, is by definition a leftist in terms of the authoritarianism. A doctor can give you advice. Stop smoking, stop drinking, get exercise, lose some weight. And you can hear it, and you can hear, as many people do, the nagging, yeah, I know you're right, doc, yeah, I'll try and do better. But then you walk out of the doctor's office and you light up a cigarette, you go overeat some more. And that's the challenge of life is, you know, it's our internal battle between our desires, which are unlimited, and our self-control. So a doctor says, Ezra, lose 50 pounds. I know you're right, doc. Easier said than done, because who's my great enemy? Well, I can't blame a fork or a spoon. I blame myself. A public health officer would sue the spoon maker. I am suing the manufacturer of every fork in America because look how fat I am. You know? That's the difference between a doctor who would say, Ezra, take responsibility, change your lifestyle in these ways, take this medicine, do this. That's a doctor, whereas a public health authority would sue the fork maker. A doctor would say, hey, you know, maybe wear a face mask if you're going out in public. A public health authority would say, I have the power to tell you not to go out in public. I have the power to shut down your business, to invent new and strange concepts called social distancing, and to enforce them in ways that are not rationally connected to the problem. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. We're going to talk about fightthefines.com. I see I've got some super chats that have been going on. It's 12:14. Let me stop and read some super chats. Thank you for sending them. $2, we need to go to war with China. Well, we are at war with China. It's not a hot war in terms of firing missiles and bullets. It's not quite a Cold War, because at least a Cold War, we were honest with ourselves that we were in an existential threat with the Soviet communists. We are in a one-sided, asymmetrical war with China, by which I mean most people on our side of the ocean don't even think we're in a war. Oh, I like my Huawei phone. Sure, I'll buy it. Oh, yeah, I have no problem with Huawei installing 5G. No problem. Oh, yeah, I think it's cool that the NBA is playing in China. Oh, isn't it funny? There's no more Chinese bad guys in Hollywood movies. In fact, Taiwan's the bad guy if it's mentioned at all. I noticed it in the new Top Gun movie. The Taiwan patches, the Republic of China patches on their jackets are taken off because you don't want to offend Chinese audiences. Business leaders don't, subtle changes. Then there's the tougher changes like intellectual property theft, outright espionage. So yeah, China is in a war with us. Many of us are willfully blind to that. So in answer to your point, we are in war with China, but our side, most of us, I think viewers of Rebel are probably in the exception, but certainly the deep state in Canada is so pro-China, and Justin Trudeau may be the most pro-China leader in the world, other than North Korea's Kim Jong-un. CPAS, $5, great work, Ezra, but could you change your time you go live till after the federal government press conferences are over? What time does the press conference at Trudeau start? 11:15-ish. You know what, I understand what you're saying. You want to watch that and you want to watch this. I'm grateful to you. He started at noon, then he moved to 11. I just got to do this at the same day every time. And I appreciate your request. Sometimes he runs late. We just got to do what we got to do. But I'll take it under consideration. Reg Porter, $10. We have to get rid of Dr. Tam. From her not doing her job before this pandemic to her misinformation that she's trying to give us. Is this Trudeau's beginning of communism? Well, Trudeau, his ideology, I think, could fairly be described as sympathetic towards communists. Think about it. Very pro-Castro. Very pro-China. And the Soviet Union is no longer communist, it's authoritarian in a different way. But I don't know if you know this, but Pierre Trudeau, his father, went to the Soviet Union several times, including as a young man, and then he took his whole family, including Justin Trudeau, I think it was in '84, so Trudeau would have been 12, took his family to Siberia, which is like where the gulags are, and said, this is the future. Yeah, no, 5 years later the Berlin Wall fell, but imagine as late as 1984, so that's after Afghanistan, imagine taking your kids to the Soviet Union in the Cold War and saying this is the future. So Justin Trudeau does come from his communist sympathies. Honestly, he inherited them from his communist father. And his father was a communist. Jimmy Lawrence, $5. Hey Ezra, not to speak moistly, but how did you enjoy that Peak Prosperity channel informative? How did you enjoy that Peak Prosperity channel informative? I'm sorry, I don't understand what you mean. Do you understand what that means?
There might have been a comment like a few days ago about that channel.
Oh, okay, thank you. It's a comment about a channel on YouTube. I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to review that yet. And you'll see why next week. I've been working on something. Proud Boys Calgary, $2. Could some of the 21 million had a low social credit score? Hey, that is a very perceptive answer. In China, they have something called social credit, not to be confused with the Alberta political economic ideology of the 1930s. Social credit is just what it sounds like. It's like a credit score, but instead of for your finances, it's for your behavior. So if you are a good communist ant in the ant colony, you have a good social credit score. You can get an apartment, you can travel, you can get a cell phone. If you get a bad social credit score, you can't get a plane ticket, a train ticket, you can't get certain apartments. And you're right, your access to the internet, including your phone, is on the hook. I wonder, that's a very, very perceptive answer. Thank you for that. You've changed my thinking on that. Dame of the Dam, it's $100. Well, that's incredibly generous, and I know you've been generous almost every day. In fact, maybe every day. So thank you. That's just amazing. I really appreciate that. Sorry, Mr. Levant, I don't believe you're making a good argument against the hospital spending. Many nurses and hospital staff are losing the jobs. Doctor appointments across the board are being canceled. The healthcare deep state is at the federal level, not provincial. I accept your point. I accept your point. In fact, it's bizarre how open and barren and sparse hospitals are because they canceled everything elective to make way for this Armageddon that never came. I accept your point. I'm not saying that every single nurse and orderly and doctor and technician and clerk is part of the deep state on the health side, but the public health authorities certainly are, and they're loving every second of it. You're so right. In fact, very early on, you started seeing viral vids on the internet, and I tried to get our guy in New York to do it, but he was afraid of catching the bug. I said, just go to different hospitals in New York and just film how empty they are. And don't go into secure areas, but he was a little bit afraid of catching the cough. Yeah, it's true. It's true. We've shut down so many normal medical procedures because we were waiting for these apocalyptic scenes out of a zombie movie that never came. Okay, so I've probably got some more super chats coming in, but Justin will send them all at once. So I was making 2 points. I was leading up to 2 points. One was the deep state in public health. And let me explain to you what I mean. Can you load up my Fire Tam? First, let's go to the website. Go to firetam.com. Because yesterday afternoon around 6 p.m., we put up a video. Look at that. We had a goal of 15,000 signatures. We're already at 15,102 in one day. We got to update that. You could send a note to Alex. Help us reach our initial goal of 15,000 signatures. Sign the petition to fire Dr. Teresa Tam now. Did you know that this whole time, Dr. Teresa Tam, Canada's public health officer, has been working for the Chinese-controlled World Health Organization? Not just as a low-level doctor or a bureaucrat, she's actually one of only 7 people on the World Health Organization's Oversight Committee for Health Emergencies. So the WHO's well-documented political corruption happened on her watch when it was literally her job to stop it. She either approved of China's meddling or was willfully blind to it. Watch my short video on the subject. And you don't need to watch that because you got me live right now. And can you, let me find out what the view count is. Now the public view count you can find on any video is a couple hours behind the private view count that I have on my YouTube app. 116,000 views on that video. You don't have to pull it up. According to our YouTube app, since we launched it, 18 hours ago. That is huge, and that's surprising to me. And you saw that over 15,000 people have signed the petition. I'll tell you, I mean, it's startling, but in a way it shouldn't be surprising, because you know our motto here at Rebel News? Let's see it in the comments. Who knows our motto? Let me give it a minute. I'm going to have a sip of this bubbly water here. Does anyone know our motto? Put it in the comments. The chats are about 30 seconds behind. I'll tell you the motto. Our motto is telling the other side of the story. And I'll tell you why that's our motto. Because number one, it reminds the world that there can be more than one side to a story. In this age of state broadcasters, bailout media, censorship, and the demonization of alternative voices, simply saying telling the other side of the story is a reminder. Fighting for freedom, that is what we do. That's sort of a catchphrase. Trust no one. That's not even that bad. Trust but verify is maybe a better one. Telling the other side of the story. It's me, what's up, yo? Yeah, you got it there. To tell the truth, that's not actually our motto, but that is something we try and be truthful and accurate. Yeah, so some people know it. Yeah, the other side of the story. The reason that's important is because if everyone is in a groupthink, it's a psychological trap, the mob mentality. Maybe you've even felt it yourself. And by the way, groupthink can be an amazing, exciting, positive feeling. I don't know if I told you, when I was in the UK, Tommy Robinson took me to a football game, that's what they call soccer over there, between his home team of Luton and Bradford. And they're so passionate about their football over there that the teams have to enter the stadium from different gates lest they get into fisticuffs. They're literally, that's one team, and they have different police forces. They have police forces to travel with the team so they know who, it was quite a thing. They all know all the cheers, all know all the songs, the flags. It was quite an amazing experience. I had a lot of fun, and obviously I'm not a big soccer guy. But you can't help but feel that esprit de corps, that team feeling, that you're part of a greater entity than yourself. And they're extremely passionate fans. That's a kind of groupthink that's thrilling and strengthening and generally quite healthy. I mean, just don't get into brutal fights, as some of them do. It's good to, sometimes a mob think can be emotionally and communally strengthening. But I was talking about sports there. When you get into politics, yeah, there we go! That's me at the Luton game. Oh, I had fun. It was so cold. It was below zero and it was raining. You know how cold it was getting, so my face was frozen there. Yeah, that was me and Tommy. Good find. So it's good to be groupthink, to be part of a fraternity or sorority, be part of a club. That's part of what being human is, to be part of society and my tribe and my people. And it can be a tribe that's based on many things. But in politics and in journalism and in public policy, if you get swept up in the moment, if you get swept up in things, you can be blind to problems. You can get carried away. And I think that for the last month, can you find maybe it's on BlogTO or something, or Toronto Life or something, or maybe just search Theresa Tam mural, M-U-R-A-L. I've seen pictures of murals, you know what I mean? Like on a public wall somewhere. The hagiography, the beatification of Theresa Tam as some sort of living saint. It was sickly, and my own instincts, yeah, this is exactly it. Thank you. Look at that. Look at that. Dr. Bonnie Henry, that's another public health officer. Dr. Teresa Tam. What's the caption on this here? Fans paint murals of Dr. Bonnie Henry, Theresa Tam in Gastown. Imagine that. Let's read the story a little bit. Murals of BC's top doctor in, boarded up windows, Powell Street in Gastown. I've gotten my provincial public health spokesman mixed up. I know there's one for every province. I've honestly forgotten Ontario's name. And there's the city ones too. Okay, go back up to the picture. I just want to show people that picture. So that's BC's public health officer. And from all accounts, she's been a fairly effective communicator. In fact, BC has done better than most. Theresa Tam, would you agree with me, has done very poorly because her advice has been ridiculous. For months, she said, don't use a mask. She not only said the mask isn't good for you, she said it can be bad for you. What? She said, don't close the borders. That can be bad for stopping the virus. What? That's where the word quarantine comes from. 40 giorni. When the ships would arrive in Venice, they had to quarantine for 40 days. 40 giorni, 40 days, before they were allowed in because they were bringing viruses and bugs from other places. You had to sit for 40 days at anchor. That's how they handled the plague 400 years ago. Her first reaction, as you know, in late January, was to call critics of the virus, people who were worried, to call them racist. She said that. So she's been horrific. And the reason for that is probably because of her own ideology, like I said, that authoritarian public health officer style that's very different from a doctor's style. But because, as I point out, she literally sits on the oversight committee of the World Health Organization's emergency response team. It was her job to blow the whistle on China. She did not. So how can, and by the way, she's on that committee today. So pick a lane, sister. You can't ride two horses. Yeah. So January 29th, the first case had hit Ontario 4 days earlier. I am concerned about the growing number of reports of racism and stigmatizing comments on social media directed to people of Chinese and Asian descent related to the virus. Help stop the spread of biases. Oh, I thought your job was to stop the spread of viruses. Don't make assumptions. Be careful of your language. I'm now a language doctor. Go to trusted information sites like China's World Health Organization. You know what is especially infuriating about that is there were no anti-Chinese expressions of bigotry. The petitions that were circulating amongst school boards to have lockdowns and masks and isolation were by Asian Canadian parents. In fact, the big one in York Region was by a Chinese dad. Probably because they were, in January, more attuned to what was going on in Wuhan. They were probably following the news in Chinese language. Maybe they were on WeChat. We used to have a staffer here who was from mainland China, and all her news came from WeChat, all of it. Basically mainland news. In fact, she would bring to my attention if there were stories about rebel news in communist China on WeChat. She was very excited about that. So my guess is a lot of Chinese Canadians were alert to the high risk of Wuhan. Yeah, Ontario School Board Concerned Parents petition could stoke racism, but what's the name of the guy? I forgot his name. They have his name. I can't find it. No, Nathan is the woman who's calling it racist. I saw the actual petition the other day. It's a Chinese guy. It was a Chinese guy. Maybe they took that out of that CBC story. It's a Chinese guy. It's a Chinese dad who said we gotta isolate. We gotta wear masks, and they're calling him racist. He's a Chinese guy. Maybe you're gonna call Taiwan racist too. Oh, they already did. So, anyways, go to our petition at firetam.com, and the reason that's important is because we have to uproot the deep state on public health. They're not, and I'm just looking for some new stats here right now, not just because the deep state thinking, authoritarian thinking is bad no matter what, but because it is hardwired, connected into the Chinese deep state, the World Health Organization deep state. The latest stats on that video are 120,000, by the way. Let me get to some super chats, and then I want to tell you the phase I think we're going into next. Because I think North America and parts of Europe are done with this pandemic, done with being afraid of the virus, or rather being over-afraid of the virus. You know, courage is not an absence of fear. It's the proper management and prioritization of fear. It is wise to be afraid of a virus that could kill you. But it is foolish to be so afraid of that virus that you cause other much worse side effects by shutting down your economy, throwing 2 million Canadians out of work, putting millions of people in a home isolation that frankly will do psychological trauma to them. I'm sure the number of divorces and stresses and depression will jump because of what's going on. So I think a lot of people are just sick of it, and now they realize that they don't have to be terrified because, all right, some people have died and that is bad. That's not good. That is sad. It's a tragedy. People do die every day. There was a bump from deaths because of this virus, but not on the scale of World War III. do you want to call up the Ontario stats? I'm curious what the Ontario stats are. So I think you're going to see people who are restless to get back to work. I mentioned Saskatchewan. I think there's 8 patients in hospital in the whole province. I'm going to predict right now that on Monday they're just going to say, all right, back to work, everybody. Some special rules for seniors' homes, some special rules for hospitals, but the rest of you is probably some suggestion to wear masks. Of course, you can't really make that the law unless you have masks to give. So total number, so this is Ontario, is that what we got here? Yeah. So this is as of April 16th. You can see that. So go scroll up to the top just so we see the headline here. So very, very top just for a second. Yeah, so this is from the Ontario government. Yeah, scroll back down. Thanks. I just wanted to show the provenance of this website. So we got 9,500 cases, up 564 cases. But look at that. 4,500 have been resolved. Now, unfortunately, 478 people have passed away. Let's look at the math there. Unlike in other jurisdictions, it's slightly more female than male. But look at that. 2.2% of the cases, and that's not of the deaths, this is just of cases now. 2.2% are 19 and under. Now, I don't have Ontario's demographics at my fingertip, but if it's anything like New York City's demographics, approximately 20% of the population is 19 and under. So you are 1/10 as likely to get the cough, to get the Rona, if you're 19 and under. And we don't have the death breakdown. I would be surprised if there were even 2 people 19 and under who passed away. But look at those other stats. Go up a little bit, just a little bit. Look at 80 and over. What's the population of 80 and over? Is it 5%? Well, it's 19.6% of those with the cases. So, and I am absolutely not downplaying the gravity of this to 80 and over. In fact, I'm emphasizing it. I'm saying, why don't we focus on the octogenarians instead of the kids? Why did we take every kid out of school? Has there even been a child of tender years who's even got the cough? Now, I know that there has been, but I don't know if there's been any mortalities in the whole of Ontario. Scroll down a little bit. Number of hospitalizations, 829. Patients in ICU, 245. Patients on a ventilator, 200. So let's talk about that. Are there 50,000 hospital beds in Ontario? I think I saw that stat the other day. So 5,000, 50,000 hospital beds, 50,000 acute care beds in the province. And 829 have patients with the cough. I wish it were 0, but it's not 8,000, and it's not 80,000, and it's not 800,000. It's 829. And only a fraction of those are serious enough to be on ventilators. And by the way, I'm not even sure if ventilators are the right solution. Maybe it's a medical solution, hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin. And what's interesting is all the deep state public health authorities, they all say, no. Don't take that existing medicine. Number one, because Donald Trump likes it, so I can't. Number two, well, that's just a medicine that, we trust, not everyone, but I've heard of quinine, and you can sort of see hydroxychloroquine, quinine. It's a malaria med. And if all it takes to beat the cough is to take a malaria med that people have been taking for decades, well, then that's good from a doctor's medical point of view. Oh, here's some hydroxychloroquine meds. So that's great if you're a doctor trying to fix a patient's problem. But if you're a public health officer, you don't want to just fix a patient. You want mass vaccinations. You want a mass authoritarian public solution. Do you see the difference in mindset? A doctor treats a patient. How do I get this guy better? How do I save him now? What works? Everything's imperfect. Everything has side effects. What works now? And there's little harm in trying. Remember, do you remember we looked at that international study of doctors, about 5,000 doctors. I forget the name of the company, Sanso or something, Cerno, S-E-R-N-O or something. This is a company that is very interesting. They have doctors around the world sign up to the app and just like literally while they're in the doctor's office, just like punch a button on different questions. So it's like a real-time, real-life doctor's survey, doctors on the front line of various things. And doctors all around the world, by the way, Canada, the United States, Spain, Italy, UK, continental Europe. And I think they actually have a couple hundred doctors in China itself. So I guess the app is not banned there. And I got to tell you, maybe those Chinese doctors are lying. Maybe they're propagandists. But I'm guessing I'm guessing in China, you're a doctor. Yeah, perfect. Sermo. There you go. So this is about 2 weeks old. But I did this on my show. Scroll down to the hydroxychloroquine part, if you could find it. So you can, let's go through it together. It's such an interesting document. I want to show people who didn't see it on my show. Put it back up. So look at some of the questions. So go down to the questions here. Let's just show the questions just to give people. Okay, so geographic distribution, that's interesting. Most of them are American, about 2,500 American. They break out New York and California. Europe, they break out Italy, Spain, France, UK, Germany. And they have China. I can't quite see that number there. What's the number in China? 245 doctors in China, and then they got 1,100 in the rest of the world. So that's a fair sample size, right? Okay, skim down. So when do you think your region will pass the peak of the outbreak? China, they all said they already did. So this is 2-week-old data. So I'm not interested in when they think they'll pass the peak of the outbreak, although that is somewhat interesting. When will you be able to, your region be able to lift restrictions? When would you recommend the lift in restrictions? So these are government effectiveness. Which of the following statements best reflects your opinion about your region's response? And then can you bump up the font size here just one notch? Thanks. So our region is giving too much weight to the public health concerns. Our region is weighing public health and the economic appropriately. So this is just doctors' opinions on non-doctor stuff. I actually don't even care that much. Let's get to the doctor stuff. Let's get to the meds. What are the 3 critical needs you have? Personal protective equipment was number 1. You'll see that. Then COVID testing and ventilation. What are the 3 most critical needs your region has? Okay, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Here we go, here we go. How long is the average time in you're getting, okay, keep going, keep going, keep going. So they're talking about testing. Treatments, yeah. Please indicate which medications, if any, you have personally prescribed or have seen used in your setting to fight COVID-19. And you can see the summary there. 3 most commonly prescribed treatments from a list of 15 options are analgesics. That's a way of saying a pain relief, like a Tylenol or an Advil. Azithromycin, 41%, and hydroxychloroquine, 33%. Well, wouldn't you know, those are the 2 Trump talked about. And you can see it broken down by country. So that's what you have seen used in your setting. But look at the next question. Are the medications you have personally prescribed or have seen used? Please indicate which ones are most effective. So what ones are being used, which ones actually work. So look at that top line. Hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine, and then the next line is azithromycin. Overall, 37%, by far the most effective. Nothing is number 3. I don't know about that. The U.S., the use of hydroxychloroquine, so go across that top line, hydroxychloroquine. So U.S., New York, they weren't using it a lot there. Europe, look at that, 37%. Italy and Spain, doctors were using it and said it was the most effective. China, 44% of doctors And in the rest of the world, 55% of doctors said it is, quote, most effective. Now, I don't know, maybe these doctors are wrong, but these are not public health officials, deep state bureaucrats working in some government office. These are, and can we scroll down again? Because I think there was one more question, if I'm not wrong. How have you prescribed hydroxychloroquine or seen it used? And then this is just very interesting to me. 57% to treat patients that have been diagnosed with COVID-19 and are experiencing severe symptoms, 57%. To treat patients that have been diagnosed and are experiencing mild symptoms, 45% say they use it there. As a prophylaxis for high-risk patients, prophylaxis is a fancy way of saying so you don't catch it. Well, 19% say that. To treat patients that have not been diagnosed but are experiencing severe symptoms, 17%. To treat patients that have not been diagnosed but are experiencing mild symptoms, 16%. And just plain old as a prophylaxis, again that means preventive for low-risk patients, even 8% have seen that. So look at the little fact box there. Outside the US, hydroxychloroquine was equally used for diagnosed patients with mild to severe symptoms, whereas in the US, it was most commonly used for high-risk diagnosed patients. So again, why am I showing you this? Because I don't want to hear from the deep state BSers. I don't want to hear from doctors who haven't actually treated a patient in memory. They're just dealing with politicians. I don't want to talk to anyone in the World Health Organization. I want to talk to doctors in the ER, in the ICU, in admitting, in Spain, Italy, UK, France, and even in China, though I take what they say with a grain of salt because they might be either, one, under duress to give an answer, or B, Communist Party liars. But I'm guessing if you're a Chinese doctor with this app, and I think there was 250 of them approximately, really, why would you lie? If someone said, is this medicine working? I don't even know why you would lie about that. Was that the last of the questions from that?
Yeah, very good.
So why do I show you that? Because that is very different from some weird deep state government type saying masks don't work. What? Don't talk about this, you're racist. What? Oh, someone said we should isolate, they're racist. No, he's a Chinese Canadian dad. So my point is, there's a big difference between a doctor who wants to get you well and it says, well, this hydroxychloroquine, it's what the other doctors are using, let's take it, just take it. That's a doctor who's got a real patient versus either a public health bureaucrat who's just following some weird World Health Organization UN advice, or worse, the media party which says, oh, Trump said the word hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin, two words that the world had never even, who had ever even heard those words? Oh, if Trump said it, they must be bad. Let's demonize those because Trump bad, so we're actually rooting for the virus now, just like they're rooting for China now. My point is, for whatever flaws are built in that international survey of thousands of doctors, I'm going to trust that survey more than I trust a know-nothing propagandist at CNN or CBC, or an ideological propagandist at the World Health Organization, or Theresa Tam. You say you sent me some more super chats?
And the last question was just dosage.
And Justin tells me the last question on that form was just the dosology of hydroxychloroquine, which is actually interesting too. They're all sharing advice. I think that's pretty cool. A doctor says, well, take 400 milligrams and then go down to 200. Well, I start with 800 and then I go down to 400. Whatever, I like that. I like the doctor banter, very, very practical. I learned a lot more from that survey than I did watching CBC or CNN, I'll tell you that. All right, Super Chats 3, did you send me Super Chats 2 as well?
Yeah, that should be there also.
Okay, let's just go through some of these here. Eric Burns March, $5. If Trump announced that he was pro-oxygen, the left would auto-asphyxiate. You're not even kidding. I think we showed you the Babylon Bee the other day, where it's a satirical website, a guy's saying, I used hydroxychloroquine, I'm better, but I hope I die just to show Trump. It was funnier than that, but that's exactly right. Rick D, $10, keep up the good work, Ezra. Well, thank you, Rick. Manuel Avila, $10, analyzing autopsy reports. Doctors in Italy found this week that the treatment they've been using was wrong. Ventilators do not work. Patients should not go to ICUs. Please check. Well, that's what I've heard also. And again, I'm not going to try to weigh in definitively on the subject, but if ventilators might not be the right remedy, and that's something that doctors would know a lot more than public health bureaucrats who say, oh, ventilators. I'm always thinking about ventilators. I want to talk about ventilators or vaccines. Or well, how about just talk about what works? Let's ask these frontline doctors. Pluto Tree, $10. Trudeau equated COVID-19 to a war and mentioned to stay home is our duty. Isn't such a metaphor harmful to Canadians, resulting in mass panic and hoarding? What are your thoughts on Trudeau's rhetoric? I think Trudeau's an idiot at the best of times. I think he has been lazy and disengaged. I've never heard of a leader, either in government or in the private sector, bravely hide out at home when there was no medical reason for him to do so. I have seen leaders of industry, other leaders around the world, and obviously, most obviously, truckers, food service workers, doctors, nurses, people in hospitals go to work, but Trudeau has basically stayed at home in his pajamas and his vacation beard. That beard tells me everything I need to know. He grew that beard when he was on his 17-day Christmas vacation in Costa Rica. 17-day vacation. Have you ever in your life had a 17-day vacation since you were a child? Trudeau took a 17-day vacation, and then he went on a 9-day junket to Africa, getting UN votes. When this pandemic hit, between the 17-day vacation, the 9-day vacation, Trudeau took more vacation time during the outbreak of this pandemic than he has at any other comparable period of time since he became Prime Minister. He's a lazy ass at the best of times. He was work avoiding, and he was fake isolating. So, I mean, who even cares what he has to say? Well, I mean, I care because he wants to usurp power from Parliament. He wants to, can you pull up the story about, well, I did it yesterday on my show. Dominic LeBlanc is talking about bringing in a law to prosecute people for fake news about the virus. Well, would that include the fake news that masks don't work? Let me keep reading. If you want to call up that headline on Dominic LeBlanc, I'll go through the rest of these super chats. Kirk Mugi, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, 279, we're headed for a tyrannical future, already there. Well, I mean, let's fight it. Let's fight for our freedom. Primpal08, $10, the U.S. is getting ready for their economy. Hard-hit Italy is ending their lockdown. Will Canada be the last country to come out of this? Will the provinces have to force this issue? Yes, yes, and yes. Because Trudeau is in the thrall of the public health types, not the doctor types. He fired his doctor health minister. Jane Philpott was pretty much universally regarded as the smartest cabinet minister and the most effective cabinet minister in his caucus, in his cabinet rather. And he sacked her because she was too principled on the Jody Wilson-Raybould SNC-Lavalin matter. She was actually a doctor. In fact, she spent the virus actually on the front lines doing doctoring. What a shame she's not the health minister, because she would have more of a patient orientation rather than a bureaucracy orientation. Oh, you're going to see places like Alberta, Saskatchewan, even BC rip away from this BS right away, and you're going to see Trudeau listening to the people whispering in his ear. Theresa Tam, World Health Organization, Gerald Butts, all the globalists. Eric Burns Marsh, $5 from the States. I would rather spend my lunchtime with Rebel than the Chinese news speak network CNN, or make sure nobody blames China. And that's MSNBC. That's very funny. Thank you very much. That's another reason to have it at 12 noon, but of course 12 noon Eastern time is 9 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. Mountain time. So, I mean, listen, any time's going to be inconvenient for some folks. Mimi Jovanovic, $5. 2 years ago, I sold a juicer across Canada. There were 4 times I was approached by men at Airbnbs to take my product back to China and manufacture to sell my own. Okay. Yeah, I mean, China is the factory of the world, isn't it? And that's part of our problem here. More than 90% of our pharmaceuticals are made in China. Obviously, more than 90% of our personal protective equipment. Anything high tech, cell phones, the Mac computer I'm using right here, made in China. My iPhone, made in China. I bet this pen was made in China. We have to start bringing manufacturing back. Because first of all, for security reasons and safety and health reasons. And second of all, is it really cheaper? Well, in a time of crisis, if you're cut off from your essentials, what's the cost of that? Have I caught up on the Super Chats or did I miss one? No, I don't think I got it. Can you, yeah, send it again, thanks. I have Super Chats 1 and Super Chats 3. I don't have the second one. Okay, were you able to find that Dominic LeBlanc thing? So a doctor would, federal government open to new law to fight pandemic misinformation. It's one of several measures the government is considering to counter fake news about the virus online. Can you go down to the word lab, just Control F or Apple F and the word lab? Because, an example, claims that it was cooked up in a lab, for example. The misinformation has shifted to conspiracy theories about what triggered the pandemic, claims it was cooked up in a lab. That's one very specific example. Thanks, you can close that page. So, first of all, I think it is now pretty much the state of the art of information and science and research and truth that this was affiliated in some way with the Wuhan Institute of Virology. I myself do not believe that it was a bioweapon necessarily, but rather something that escaped from the lab, leaked, it was an accident. As Sheila showed in her great report 2 nights ago, there were a lot of concerns about the safety practices at that lab. It was sloppy, it was dirty. So my own personal hunch based on the available facts is that this was certainly not deployed on purpose. This probably was not an engineered virus, but it was a virus that was being poked and prodded and inspected and learned from by the Chinese biowarfare team that got out into the system and may have killed millions of Chinese people and has killed others around the world. So it is no longer in contention that this lab, like no one seriously denies that this lab was involved in some way. But you saw right there that Justin Trudeau wants to ban, using the force of law, conspiracy theories about the lab. First of all, I don't know if they're conspiracy theories. I guess a lot of theories, before they're proven as fact, could be called conspiracy theories. A conspiracy theory, I suppose, is just a theory of people doing, like, what is the difference between a theory and a conspiracy theory? Both of them are unproven. A conspiracy theory, I suppose there's some political nature to it, or you're imputing some malice. Yeah, that works for China for me. But let's say, in the end, the preponderance of information here is misleading, and the virus did not, in fact, come from the lab. Okay, so why is that a crime to say that? So let's say you got it wrong. Like, there's a lot of junk theories out there on 9/11, and they irk me a bit because they take blame away from the criminals and terrorists. When you have a conspiracy theory about 9/11, you're in effect excusing the terrorists in my mind. And you're devaluing the work of the first responders. That's my view. But I don't say ban conspiracy theories. First of all, that's crazy. Second of all, it's only going to inflame them. Third of all, why? Why? Why do you care? Why do you care if someone blames this agency of the Chinese government instead of that one? Why would you ban that, other than you're a weird, freaky control freak? I want to show one last thing. It's 12:59. There were so many. We could go on for 3 hours today. There's that much stuff. But I want to skip, and there are so many things you put together on this sheet, Justin. But I want to go to fightthefines.com. Because as some governments go back to work, and many people chafe at their house arrest and just say, to heck with it, I'm going out of my house. people are going to be arrested and fined. Help us fight the fines. Ordinary Canadians are being fined extortionate amounts for going outside while the Prime Minister visits cottage country. Can you help us fight this double standard? Well, it's not even a double standard. I might tweak the wording there. It's not that I hate the double standard. It's that it's against our civil liberties, and there's no good reason. I don't want the Prime Minister locked up either. So you see it says, please click here to contact us in confidence. You may be eligible for free legal defense, where we will help fight your ticket. And David did a great story on it. So I'm going to tweak the wording there because it's not even the double standard. The double standard makes it all the more galling. But it's the single standard that bugs me is that cops can give you an $800, $900, $1,200 ticket for rollerblading with your family, for walking your dog. So since we put that website up a couple days ago, we have had 5 people contact us with their case in 3 different provinces. Now, one of the cases simply wasn't on point. It was a frustrating case that someone had, but it was not on point. One of the cases, I can't even believe it, the guy paid the ticket and then said, come and help. Well, it's too late for that, buddy. You rung that bell. You can't unring that bell. Don't pay a ticket and then decide you want to fight it. That doesn't even make sense. Oh, my God. And it was a case of a guy walking his dog. Well, you got that much dough? Oh, my God, I was frustrated by that. But 3 other cases, we got 3 cases, and we have retained outstanding lawyers. And that's why we haven't rolled with these stories yet, because we got to connect the lawyer to the client. We got to check things, and then we got to assign a journalist to it. It's like there's 3 legs to that stool. There's the client. What's your story? What are the facts? There's the lawyer. What's our case? Can we fight this? There's the journalist. Can we tell the story? And we got to crowdfund the lawyers. You're going to be delighted when I show you the lawyer who's handling 2, maybe 3 cases. I think we might have another case that's come to our attention in Ontario. You're going to be absolutely delighted when you see the lawyer who's working for us in Ontario on this. There is no better lawyer in Ontario for these cases. You're going to be blown away. Sorry to raise your excitement and tease you, but we should have those stories as soon as today, maybe tomorrow. And we have a case from Calgary, and so Sheila's working on one of these stories. Kian's working on one of these stories. David is working on 1, maybe 2 stories. We might have yet another one. So in the next few days, you will see our civil liberties public interest law push. Right now, you saw the website. We say, help us crowdfund, bring us your cases. We've had 4 or 5. There's 1 case came to us in a different way, so let's call it 5 cases. Or is it 6 now? I'm confused. We're going to have so many of these cases. I want to take 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 cases. I want anyone, now if you've been very badly behaved, if you're doing something insane, I don't want the case. Like we've all seen those ridiculous criminal cases of people licking things in public. I'm not interested in that. Go to jail. You're licking stuff? First of all, that's assault and battery. That's battery. That's gross. But you're walking your dog and a cop gives you a ticket? No, don't pay it. Come to us. You're talking to your neighbor over your fence? Ottawa said that's illegal. And then they back down. No. You got a ticket for that? Come to us. We got a case, and I don't even really want to give it away. Well, what am I saying? We're going to have the story as soon as today. A guy, you're not even going to believe this, but you'll see the guy, you'll see the lawyer, you'll see our journalist. Sheila's on this one. And I know it's 1:04, but let me just finish the story. And did you send me a final super chats? I can't remember. Okay, so let me tell this story, and then I'm going to read the super chats, and then I'll say goodbye because it's 1:04. I want to tell you a true story. So a guy in his vehicle goes to a Tim Hortons drive-thru, gets a coffee and a donut or whatever. All right. And then, have you ever gone through a drive-thru in your vehicle, you got your food, and then you park in the parking lot of that restaurant, which, by the way, these days are open because you can't go into a restaurant. So this guy goes to a Tim Hortons, gets his coffee and whatever, and then, have you ever done this? You just sort of park, and you just eat it in your car. Maybe you listen to your radio or you look at your phone. Just have your coffee and your donut in your car. Windows up, just sitting in your car. You're by yourself. Of course you've done that. In fact, are you not sort of supposed to do that? Better than driving while, going with all the sandwiches. Not that many of us haven't done that. So you park, you eat, and then you throw your stuff in the garbage can and you go. So a cop comes over to this guy. He's by himself in his vehicle. He's just sitting there eating his donut and coffee in the restaurant parking lot. He just bought the coffee. He just went through. He's eating it. And the cop gives him a ticket. I could call it up on my screen, but I don't want to waste the time to find it. That's a true story. What? Now, is that a doctor's medical advice? No, of course not. Is that a public health officer's busybody, boss you around advice? You're darn straight it is. And that's in the next month, you will see a great quarrel between the public health authoritarian bullies and the real doctors. Bifurcation, dichotomy, whatever. Let me use fancy words. My point is, you're going to have people who say, okay, can we get on with life and let's just do some smart things. Let's, keep washing our hands, keep using sanitizer. Let's get some masks where it's smart, but let's just cool it and normalize and be smart and let's take care of those seniors' homes, okay? That's going to be one side. And that's going to be like 70% of people. And then there's going to be 5% of people who are this freaky arrest everyone just because I've really enjoyed this power and I don't want to give it up. You're going to have about 25% of people who are naturally good citizens and they want to be obedient to the law because they grew up respecting the law, respecting authority, respecting the government, and trusting the government. And they're still scared about the pandemic, so they're going to follow the 5% authoritarians. Just, that's what, the internet would call sheeple. I got to read the super chats because I got to go because I got to do something. I just hear in my ear. I got to go in 8 minutes. Psycho Killer, $50. Good morning, Ezra. Please explain how the United Nations and World Health Organization are slowly taking the power away from the federal government and provincial governments for years. All party colors have been at fault for letting this happen. Do you agree? I absolutely agree because people are afraid to take on the globalist institutions because you're called a kook, you're called a hyper-nationalist. I think, though, that the pendulum, I think things have changed. I think this has blown up the credibility of the World Health Organization, and Donald Trump has normalized that conversation. Let me whip through some more of these. Manuel Avila, $5. On Monday, you said that JT's wrongdoings were not criminal acts, but simply political errors. Are we simply hopelessly doomed then? No, because there can be a political solution to these problems. Michael Dimovsky, $20. Aaron O'Toole is taking a very firm stance on China these days. Would you endorse him in conservative leadership race? I don't know. It's one thing for him to have a couple of tweets. I've been disappointed in him and in Peter MacKay. And my biggest beef with Aaron O'Toole right now, frankly, is his censorship and his childish whininess. He instead of fighting Jim Karahalios, he complained to the party and got his rival kicked out. I find that a reflection of his character, which I find terrifying, that he would censor an opponent rather than fight him. I'm deeply concerned about Aaron O'Toole's character, and I'm actually quite concerned about the people around him. I like his China policy, obviously. Heap bag, $10, not your motto, but now more than ever, keep fighting for freedom. I guess that is my catchphrase, but our motto is telling the other side of the story. What's the difference between a catchphrase and a motto? Nothing. Gary G, $10. Hello, Ezra. I'm trying to send you a link of Dr. Butter. Ask your researchers to look up Dr. Butter live stream April 15 and post it. Dr. Butter is coming to the front lines of truth. All right, I'll take that under advisement. I'm going to whip through these super chats. $2 from Primpal. No more Barney Fife. Fight the Fife. I think you're talking about Bob Fife and how he wrote about Canada giving $838,000 to the Wuhan virus lab and just claimed that as his own story when in fact Sheila Gunn Reid broke the story 2 days ago. Yeah, it was sort of pitiful and sort of small of Bob. I mean, Bob works for the big legacy media, works for the Globe and Mail. He's achieved success by any measure, status, fame, paycheck, but for some reason he felt insecure to give a little shout out to the woman who actually broke the story, Sheila Gunn Reid. I think that shows a smallness. You're so big, you're the big shot, you're the chief reporter for the most prestigious paper in the country, but for some reason you can't even say, yeah, Sheila broke the story. What is that? That's something psychological, that's what that is. All right, my friends, it's 1:10. I got to go because I think we got an interview I got to conduct in 5 minutes. So thank you for joining us. We went 11 minutes long anyways. May I invite you to sign our firetam.com petition. It's doing very well. And you're going to see these stories, including the donut guy, in probably today or tomorrow or over the weekend. We have 3-4 clients. I'd like to get 10 times that number, and I fear there will be. When I say I'd like to, obviously I don't want anyone to be hassled this way. But I certainly don't want people paying the fines. Like the dog walker who paid his fine and then said, oh, can you help me? No, buddy, come to us first. Don't pay the fine. So if you know of anyone who's being harassed this way, go to fightthefines.com and have them fill out the form, okay? All right, that's our show for today. Until tonight, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters, to you around the world, goodbye, and keep fighting for freedom.